mutuality. Both ways. Wisdom, share from the old and the young. And planet. Open-heartedness. It's a good word. Heartedness. Open-hearted. Newcomers want to know our future focus. Yes? What is the future focus? They're not that interested in the past. But what are you thinking of? What's going to be happening down the road of it? So that future focus I would really highlight. Okay, rather than where we have been. So that's a very good one. Who did that come from?
Back here.
Back here.
Oh, great.
That came from a couple years ago. We had a come and see here. A couple years ago, we had a come and see here, and like all the weekends, a portion of it was giving a brief history of our community and introduction of our foundress. So when this young woman who was from out of state, went back home, the two sisters that saw her said, well, how did the weekend go? And she said, it went fine, but I'd rather know what you're going to do in the future than know all about your history.
Yes, that's very true. Today's youth is very future-oriented. So those of you who are planning, okay, getting to know one another, attempting to learn Spanish or French or Creole or any other language. Attempting. Doesn't mean you have to be perfect in it. And to be willing to make some mistakes. That's very good. Trust. Providence. Own self. Open door to others. Taking pride in who we have become. Faith sharing can open the way to spirituality of the young. Faith sharing. Be intentional about what I say. Don't say in this situation or with this person.
What I say or don't say.
Okay, thank you. Be intentional with what I say or don't say. Okay, good. Education about cultures. Now, there's lots of ways where we can get education about cultures. But also we know we want to go beneath the waterline. And we can only usually get that directly from the person of the culture. But that's a wonderful way of learning, stretching our thinking. The differences in food. Practice cooking. Mexican food or Guatemalan food. Yeah. Or even eating it, going to a restaurant that makes that kind of food. Bela would love to go to a restaurant that serves Guatemalan food, right? Yes. Invite her. Ask her you'd like to take her out to such a restaurant. Okay, siestas. Wonderful idea. But it's only us crazy gringos who don't do that. Time concepts. Punctuality. When you get there.
People come first.
Types of spirituality. Good. What are some of the different types of spirituality? Provide opportunities for it. Maybe centering prayer or faith sharing or any of those kinds of things. Have a variety. Cleanliness. What does that mean? Where did that come from?
In different countries, what we see as cleanliness, they may see,
As sterile.
or they may have had maids, who knows?
Okay.
It's a matter of maybe knowing how to be clean.
Yes, but remember that's a quality or, evaluation.
Yeah.
What is clean for some people may not be considered clean for others.
That's what-
So we need to have kind of an open mind on that.
We Germans have, someone came to me one time and said, when I was at the shrine, someone came to me, knocked on my door, and I asked what she wanted, and she said, "Are the people around here all German?" And I said, "Yes." I said, "But what made you ask?" And she said, "Everything is just so neat and clean. My grandfather came from Germany, and even the garbage can had to be neat."
I remember my first time driving around this, when I came to do some work at St. Charles, that area. I couldn't believe the cleanliness and the order of the farms. I couldn't believe it. And I thought back, the Shanty Irish. Wait, that was not that important for us. But it is. Okay, entertainment. Good. There's all different levels of entertainment. Do we go out and invite young people and enjoy their entertainment? Or do I just prefer to play cards or that kind of thing? Okay, aspects of language. Is that the same as learning another language? Is that what you meant there?
I'm not sure what we meant. You brought that one up. Terry?
No.
You have a good example of that. Regina has a good example of what that might mean.
This happened to me the first year when I went to Chile. I went to the first teachers meeting, and of course the priest was the director, and then it was an English school, so we had an English teacher and so on. And during that meeting, all of a sudden the English teacher says to the principal, the priest, "Shut up." I just about dropped out of my chair, and I was wondering what kind of a school I was getting into. And Father just sat there, and it didn't bother him at all, and I couldn't understand until I understood the language. Cállate in Spanish has absolutely no comparison to the strength of shut up in English. And he was translating literally. And these mistakes that can happen can anger people without our realizing what's really happening.
That's right. Also, maybe cállate in Chile has a different meaning than what it has in Puerto Rico. I would have to be very careful,
Or Mexico.
or maybe Mexico, of when I use that word, because it is kind of a vulgar, sharp. But see, it's different in different cultures, right? So that's very true. We need to be very sensitive to language and ask if we don't know. The need to communicate with their own. Okay, I think it's very important that there is opportunity for people to communicate and to spend some time with their own culture. Because those of you who have been overseas know how tiring it can be to be listening to a different language continuously, and how freeing it is to be able to share a meal and to talk your own language. So remember that when you have people of another culture in your community. Give them, encourage them to take opportunities to be with their own. They're not going to lose anything. In fact, they may feel much more invigorated. Okay, quinceañeras. Those are the celebrations of the 15 or the 16-year-old. And they're wonderful celebrations. The young girl coming into their adulthood. And it's a wonderful way of teaching the whole theology around it. It's a great celebration. Sometimes we're just so critical of it because it costs so much money. Well, they have a different value for money. But it's a marvelous, marvelous celebration. Multiple environments. Okay, whose is that?
That's ours. I think I was thinking we might have more than one. We might have more than one non-English speaker in the house, from maybe a Hispanic living with an Asian. So you might have multiple cultural environments.
That's right. And that each environment is respected and appreciated. Yes. Did this group do all of this work?
Yeah.
Okay, I think they deserve what? Yes, that's a lot of work.
One more.
Yeah, we've got two, yeah, another one over here. Yes. Okay, leave the comfort zone and be with the other.
That's what you did.
What's your comfort zone? Where I can really just be myself. I don't have to be thinking in another language. I don't have to be wondering what's going on. I just feel comfortable. Okay, we gotta leave it and go to the edges. Go to the periphery. Go to the margins. And Pope Francis is talking about that all the time. The invitation that's there. And the comfort zone is going to be different for different people. You know what your comfort zone is. So what's the challenge for you? Okay, although the other may go around another path, time together will continue in life. Okay, this is from,
It's from us.
yes.
It's if there is an intercultural relationship, the relationship will continue. And so just because they're no longer as connected together, I mean, geographically, physically, whatever, there is a relationship that continues when it is an intercultural relationship.
Yes. Because of the value that you have built, you have given it when you built that relationship. That give and take.
And it changes both cultures or
Both people. Yes, definitely. Both will be changed by the experience. Very much. Okay, we have another one here. Foster apostolic life at Salem. That's here.
yes.
We were,
You talked about the intergenerational piece, and we talked about ways to help sisters get into a new sense of apostolic activity. Like, well, I just thought of some things like a spiritual direction group, or a Facebook spiritual direction group, or some ways that people can benefit from the wisdom of our elder sisters. Should I talk about the second one? One of the things that we think is that to be truly intercultural, all of the sisters in our congregation need to be completely full members. They need to be electable. They need to know this culture and not just us know their culture.
That's it. That mutuality, that's so important. Could you just explain a little bit about electability? That's my ignorance, not yours probably.
That anybody in the congregation needs to be able, we need to be able to consider that person as somebody that we could elect to an office. If they don't speak English well enough, they can't. If they don't have very much experience in this country, they can't. You need to have some experience here and some ability to speak some English.
Yes. And so are you going to be able, is the congregation going to be able to provide that for them? Sure. They have to. They have to. Yeah, no, they have to. Because that can be such a tremendous addition to your leadership, to the congregation, to the life of the congregation. Now, yes.
I think our Chilean sisters, I think they have a model for us to look at because of their intentional community focus is what younger people are looking for, that kind of sense of community.
Mm-hmm. That's right. It came out where?
That whole topic came out in the special conversations that we had with different groups of lay people. And I know one group actually brought that up, that they had some experience apparently with the Latin American folks. That they weren't necessarily talking about our sisters, but based communities in Latin America. And when they knew that we had sisters in Latin America, they said we should capitalize on that because it's a wonderful way to celebrate community and to have faith sharing, and the younger people were looking for that.
That's right. And also the younger people, and sometimes we might say, well, you know, they're just a little bit too structured or too conservative or whatever. That's not the case. Remember, we have had structure all along, and sometimes we're glad to get away from it. But they have not had it. And structure does give us, it's a big help. And that's what culture does. Culture gives us a structure to live with. And so you may need to look at that. Because I've heard congregations say, well, we really didn't accept her because she wants too much community and too much praying together. I said, wow, you know, what are you about? You know? So, let's see, just one other question before we take a break. In your congregation, do you feel that there has been a significant change because of the experience of your overseas or your missionaries that have been in another cultural experience, even here in the United States? Do you think that has impacted your congregation?
I personally do feel that there has been an impact. Being a very German community, when we entered at my age, I think we were very, very closed. And I think the openness of having been in the foreign countries or down in South America has made a difference in our whole mentality about other cultures and about prayer and many things.
Okay, that's good to hear. How about some other thinking on it? Do you have some thoughts on it?
I think individual people have made great impacts on the community, but I'm not so sure that we use that as a community. The thing that's always disappointed me the most about is we've never recognized the U.S. involvement in Chile, or in El Salvador, or in Guatemala, and now in Honduras. We've never taken that step farther than the music and the food and the artifacts to realize what we have done to the countries where our sisters are. And that's something that's really pained me, because our same system is doing it to the immigrants here. The same people who are coming here from El Salvador and Guatemala and Honduras, who are our immigrants here, have, you know, received the same kind of treatment in their countries, you know, and that's why they're coming here, and we're giving it back to them. You know, and that thing I don't think we've ever really addressed as a community. I think we've been very political in how we look at countries and how we look at immigrants, but not through the lens of Catholic social teaching or human rights. I think we have done somewhat on that, but I really think we could have done a better job.
I think we have grown in the acceptance of all peoples, and that when we see a need, we are willing to reach out to whoever that is who has a need, and it's not, we're not stopped by race or culture or creed or anything else. And I even think back to 30 years ago when we sheltered victims of domestic violence at the retreat house, and we responded to an opening questionnaire that we were willing to shelter anyone. All the other churches, be it Catholic, Lutheran, whatever, they would take care of their own. We were willing to take care of anyone in need. And I think that's been a primary focus that we've had. I think we've grown a long way. I think we all have some prejudices within us, but I think we have grown along.
I can't answer if or how having missionary sisters that go to other countries has impacted the community of sisters, but I can answer that it has had a huge impact on my family to have Edna, the witness she is to our family. Edna is my aunt who's a member of this community. And my entire life, I was so proud to have Sister Edna down in Chile, and when she come back, it was a celebration every time she came back. And what we learned from her lived example of taking care of the poor and the willingness to sacrifice and go, her courage, just, I can't even put into words the impact that has had on her siblings and her nephews and nieces, and so don't sell yourself short with what kind of an impact that has outside of the community.
Good, thank you.
I also would like to agree with what Judy said. I think that we have grown a lot. I think sometimes it's through conversations with other sisters who have worked maybe even in southern states that maybe I have never been there. I had an 8-week experience in Appalachia, and that's a different culture. Sometimes it's not going to a foreign mission and experiencing it there, but also within our own country. And when we sisters share that with one another, I think that enriches our lives and helps us to broaden our life experience.
Yes, and really it should. It should broaden our worldview. I ask that question because I know in some congregations, the individual missioners that have been working in the South or working in other places or South America or wherever, sometimes do not feel that they have really made any impact on the congregation. And I think that's always something to look at. I know in our congregation we had over 90 at one point working in many different parts of the world. And I don't know, I never really sensed that it made that much difference on the general membership. And I don't know what we could have done that would have helped improve that. But that's just, you know, from my own personal experience, so I usually always ask it to see. Yes?
More than 60 years ago, we did not have the experience of Sisters in Chile. We now have had it for 60 years. And because we've had that experience, I've only visited. I've not ministered there. I've visited a couple of other places that have brought in me individually. I think we have, as a congregation, we have been brought in because we have learned a lot about those people, those cultures, and the sisters who have worked there. We are much bigger than we were before we went there.
Yeah, and that's what, I mean, that's what, the way it should be, I think. That we are much bigger. We have bigger eyes to see. And the missioners themselves, for all the rest of their lives, will always see the world from a different perspective. Yes.
How about you? How much do you think that good media directed internally, partially at the community, can affect that? I'm thinking in particular, as I watch the progress of Marino magazine, and the stories of the missioners in different parts of the world become more personal, more rich, in spite of the fact the missioners are getting older.
Fewer. I say there's the fewer and fewer missionaries.
Right, but the interpreting our sister missionaries to ourselves through good media, it seems to me good writing, is a way of opening that field.
That's very, very true. And that's part of the responsibility of your good communication department, your development department. Yes. No, that's very important. And I think it's to share that message with as broad a sphere as you can. Because really, Marino Fathers and Brothers, who produce the magazine, have very, very few overseas now. They have a number of lay missioners, but even that is very limited because of the finances. But you'd never know it by reading the magazine. They bring up these pictures they've had there. So, I mean, just kind of think of that as part of the communication of the story.
As you're saying that, I'm at the Precious Blood Center in Chicago with the Gang Boys. Who else is Gang Boys? But anyway, we did a field trip to St. Charles, and we have Creation Corner in the Kansas City Province wine press, or wine cellar, wine something. Anyway, but we went and took 3 boys with us for a field trip to St. Charles, and Father David Kelly was explaining the things we were talking about, and Marty set it up for us. And the missionaries of the Precious Blood, they were like, the room was filled, and also had neighbors, from neighboring parishes came to be a part of that. And the missionaries themselves could not believe the difference They said, we read that all the time. We always read that magazine. We read Creation Corner, which is always Precious Blood Center. But now they understood it because they had those 3 boys that could talk about it. They saw them, they heard them, they could ask them questions. And in asking the questions, when the boys would answer, they're like, really? Really? Is that really how it is? You know, that's mass incarceration.
That's right.
Is what it is.
That's great. Okay, so we need to always be promoting the good work, the good news.